Greetings, everyone. I'm greeting you from the mountain kingdom of Lesotho. My name is Thato Cynthia Masupha. Cynthia, it's my middle name. I work with the Ministry of Social Development as a senior child welfare officer. I do have a 6-year experience as community development officer. So that is why I have the two relationship with the child's rights and to the community development aspects. So I do have facilitated and organized different workshops regarding in connection with child protection in my country or the district that I'm basically placed at the moment. And again, I have facilitated different projects for self-reliance in the same district that I'm working at. I'd like to say good evening, good afternoon, good morning to everyone who is present here. As it has been said that my task today is to talk to you about the child's rights approach to community development. So I'll start by introducing or giving you just a snapshot of Merida. Can you share the slides, please? Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. As it reads, child rights approach to community development. And then the next slides, okay, thank you. I quoted the 2030 agenda that says, leave no one behind. It is quite evident that the world's 2.3 million children and youth constitute approximately a third of the global population. Majority of the children are not visible as they should. That is the situation of the children in Africa and the rest of the world. That they can bring up the interest and concerns and are ahead, despite the enormous progress that as the world we have made the progress in terms of children's rights or implementation of children's rights. We still see chartered rights are deliberately challenged or ignored, also for the sake of consolidating power. And we have realized that in every single day, children are hindered from enjoying their rights. One would ask why and who is hindering children from enjoying their rights. And that is the question that we can all ask ourselves. And in our different countries, with the given situation or the position of children in our countries, are we content with the situation or the position of children in our countries, that we can clearly say, yes, children are enjoying their rights as they should, children are visible as they should, or is there a need for us to do something to change the position of children in our own countries? as I move, there are different child's rights instruments that are available, which are, in our context, our focus on African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, and the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which is the treaty that is globally recognized in terms of children's rights. And there are also optional protocols to the CRC, that is the UN CRC, on the sale of children and child prostitution and child pornography. This particular protocol is basically the protocol that speaks to the sale of children. We know that it is very common that nowadays children are being trafficked and children are engaged in child prostitution and child pornography, now that we are doing everything virtually and everything is done online. So these are the protocols that are not basically included in the convention. So there's this other one on the involvement of children in armed conflict, which is very common in Africa. So the other protocol on communication procedures, on how best we can communicate with children, how best can we involve children in any kind of communication or any means of communication. Again, there's a convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, which is pertinent to children's rights, girls' rights. Sorry about that. And we have the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. So these are the instruments that are available that we need to do something for our communities to be aware of these child's rights instruments, where we live, where we interact with children, and also children needs to be aware of these child's rights instruments. So there is a common understanding among countries that all children everywhere have the right to survive and develop, to be protected from violence and exploitation and abuse, to have their views respected, and to have actions concerning them to be taken in their interest. So in this regard, I'll briefly give a summary of what the Convention on the Rights of the Child is mainly about. It recognized that children are the holders of their own rights, not passive recipients of charity, but empowered actors in their own development. It defines childhood as a separate space from adulthood and sets out the rights that must be realized for children to develop their full potential, free from hunger, like I said, and free from exploitation and neglect and abuse. It obliges governments to put its commitments into practice by amending and creating laws and policies to fully implement the convention and consider all actions in light of the best interest of the child. So as it says, it's true that we have the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which is a global treaty or the international treaty that seeks to protect the welfare and development of children. But we also have the African Charter on the Rights and the Welfare of the Child, which speaks to the rights of children in Africa. On 11th, before the day I was born, on the 11th of July 1990, Africa made history in the world by becoming the first continent to adopt a regional treaty specifically on children. And that is the great, that is the great or enormous achievement for Africa. That was the, yeah. So it was developed to respond to some specific rights and welfare needs of children in Africa, which has not been fully catered in the UNCRC. And it was, the adoption was by the Organization of African Unity in 1990. It waited, I'll give you a brief history about the African Charter on the Rights of the Child. It waited for 8 years before it came into force. That is 8 years between it came into force in 1999. So far it has been ratified by 47 countries of the 55 African Union member states. There is also a body of experts for Africa, like UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, which is African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, which was like hosted by the African Union Commission, if I still remember well, which was hosted by African Union Commission, and it was established in 2001. And I'm very proud, or I'm very glad to tell you that the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, it's currently being, is now being hosted in Lesotho now. So Lesotho has to do much, because the role of the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child is to monitor. It's basically to monitor the implementation of children's rights, and it has to regularly report to African governments. So that is why I'm saying we really, as the country, we really need to do much more than we have been doing as it comes to children's rights. So yes, Marina, you can move. So basically, there are three categories of children's rights. We normally call them 3 Ps. So the 3 Ps are about rights to provision. So when we talk of the rights to provision, we're basically talking about the survival and development of right to life, which includes right to food, shelter, education, health, leisure, and culture, family relations and parental guidance, and on and on. So we also talk about rights for protection. And what is it that when we're talking about rights to protection, we are talking about we talking about to protect children from all forms of harm and exploitation. We know that, with the experience in our different environments or in our different countries, children are currently experiencing violence, they're experiencing abuse, exploitation, and neglect, and those have been exacerbated currently now that there is COVID-19. Now children are basically not being protected as they should. So as more of them are being placed or are not being given the appropriate care that is required. So I mean, the 3 Ps are very important to take into cognizance, that children are all protected from all forms of harm and exploitation. And again, there's their rights to participate. Children has to be actively be seen or being visible or being active agents in their own lives and in their own society. And it is, I know that I have not covered the rights such as freedom of expression, freedom of association, and freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. So it is very important to know that children have a right to thought, conscience, and religion, and also not leaving out the cultural activities or recreation or leisure. So these are the 3 Ps that we really need to take into cognizance in whatever or areas of our work when we deal with children. And there are 4 cardinal principles of children's rights. Some would recognize them as the non-discrimination, that the right not to be treated unfairly, not be treated according to your race, your gender, your color, your origin, or your whatever, your birth or anything. Children should not be discriminated against, and the right to have decision taken in children's best interest. And I know that wherever children are involved or wherever the services are meant for children, we always talk about the best interest of the child, that everything that we do, we're doing it at the best interest of the child. So it is very important that every decision that we need to take, it has to be in the best interest of the child. So children also have the right to life and development. I know I've mentioned that from the previous slides, and the right to be heard, I did mention it from the previous slide. Thank you, Merinda. You can also move. So yeah, we have come to the real core of the presentation. So one would ask, what is the child rights approach? Child rights approach is the one that furthers the realization of child's rights. It uses child's rights standards and principles from the CRC and the African Charter on the Welfare and the Rights of the Child, and other international human rights instruments to guide behavior, actions, policies, and programs. It also builds the capacity of children as rights holders to claim their rights and the capacity of the duty bearers to fulfill their obligation. So the child's rights approach is the one that furthers that, like I said, furthers the realization of children's rights as laid down in the CRC and other instruments that we we know of when it comes to children's rights. So again, there are many ways of defining human and child's rights approaches. The definition of child's rights approach used for this presentation draws on the definition below. The Committee on the Rights of the Child has defined the child's rights approach as follows. It's about the respect of the dignity, life, survival, well-being, health, development, participation, non-discrimination of the child as rights-bearing person should be established and championed as the preeminent goal of state parties' policies concerning children. This is best realized by respecting, protecting and fulfilling all the rights in the convention and its protocols. We can move. So as we endeavor to realize children's rights in our respective work, in our respective homes, in our respective communities, it requires a paradigm shift, the new way of looking things, away from approaches which children are perceived and treated as objects in need of assistance rather than as rights holders entitled to non-negotiable rights. It is commonly known, or it is a common practice that most of us, we regard children as passive, people with no talents, people with no abilities. We regard them as pawns, like pawn chairs, where we can only move children around without taking into cognizance that they also have the potential to be the drivers of their own development, to be the drivers of their own inspirations. So we also need to realign our way away from charity with a strict focus on needs, towards a rights-based, sustainable approach that benefits more children. You can move, okay, thank you. There are also 7 principles that a child rights approach is basically based on. We talked of the dignity. We need to respect children's dignity and their worth, the best interest of the child. These are the principles that are also applicable in the UN Convention, the African Charter of the Child and Welfare of the Child. And we also need to take into cognizance that participation, it is critical if we really need to realize the rights of children. Life, survival and development, non-discrimination, and transparency and accountability. The interdependence and indivisibility of the rights of children. We need to focus on children as social actors, and we need to have a holistic view of children, considering all aspects of children while making our strategic choices and setting our priorities. So one would ask, what is community development has to do with child right child rights-based approach. Community development is defined by the United Nations as a process where the conditions of social and economic process are created through participation within the community and reliance on the community initiatives. So it is important, or there's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child. So in everything that we do, the child has to be at the center. The village, the community, the parents, and everybody that has a stake in raising a child has to see to it that they respect, or we respect, the children's rights and uphold the children's rights. So in this case, community development is key driver in defending children's rights and others to thrive in a way that builds society grounded in the principles of equality, dignity, peace, tolerance, and non-discrimination. So this also applies in every field or any practice, be it social work, be it health sector, be it education sector. We need to take this into cognizance, and we need to take children's rights into our practices and make sure that we implement children's rights as they are their rights that we cannot take away from, or that they are privileged to, but they were born with those rights. Thank you. So as we move as community development practitioners, we value participation democracy. And with children's rights, or with the UN Convention, it clearly states that participation is a key principle or a prerequisite to these other rights of children. So we also need to value sustainable developments. So for us to have a sustainable development, we need to engage children in every matters that affects them. And the sustainability of children's rights, we will realize the sustainability when everybody upholds the children's rights, and in our practices, in our communities, that is when we'll be saying, yes, as community development practitioners, we have great awareness, we have advocated that children's rights be taught in schools. Children's rights must be visible in health sectors. Children's rights must be visible in local governments. Children's rights must be visible in our social services, in every way that children are concerned. Community development also values equality and human rights. So in terms of equality, children needs to be afforded equal opportunities, regardless where they come from, regardless of their age, regardless of their race, regardless of their cultural background, regardless of their ethnicity. So human rights are the rights for all, including children. Why children are having their special rights? Because children are the most vulnerable, and they also need that special care, that special guidance, that special protection. We also, as community development practitioners, value social and economic justice. So how are we going to realize social and economic justice? We need to advocate for equality, equal opportunities when it comes to social and economic sphere. The empowerment, we also value the empowerment of people. So we are not going to leave out children when we're aiming to empower our communities. We need to empower our children to claim their rights. We need to empower our children to know that they are the rights holders, not just at the receiving end of services or the basic services that we believe they need. Thank you. Okay. It is very important as well that I needed to include or to raise the fact that development is a right. And that cannot be taken away from anyone. Is an inalienable human right by virtue of which every human person and all peoples are entitled to participate in. Why are we leaving children out? Why are we having the perspective that children cannot be part of the development? Yes, we need to develop our children, and we need to develop their potential and their abilities to participate in the developments. They also need to contribute and enjoy economic, social, cultural, and political development, in which all human rights and fundamental freedoms can be fully realized. Yes, okay, right. So, yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, so why children's rights approach to community development? The aim is to bring together the best of what has previously been two separate ways of looking at the world. Community development practitioners need to recognize children's needs as rights, or translate children's needs into rights as duty bearers. So, for example, a need of clean drinking water, it's not only a need, but it is also a right. And children do have a right to a clean water, as they do have a right to quality health care. We need to focus on community development from servicing needs to building capacity of children and communities to understand, claim, and fulfill their rights. Bringing the two together offers us the possibility of uniting the best aspects of both approaches to add value of the vision where we want to see our children. There is a saying that we need to, to engage them. We need to start the development earlier. We need to engage children at the tender age from a family-based where the decisions are being taken, or anything that is going to affect children has to be discussed with children, and they need to have a say in that. We are not saying a 3-year-old can be involved in family matters. We also need to take into cognizance their evolving capacities. and realize at which age that children can be engaged. So as community development practitioners, we need to recognize children as central actors to participate in the processes of development, given a due weight of expressing their views. We need also to engage with children constructively on the realization of their rights. Children should be understood in a broad sense, far beyond child's rights. So we need to understand that they are also human. And as they're human beings, we need to understand that they have the abilities and the potential to make a difference in whatever way that they can in every community development endeavors. The role of community development in promoting this CRA, that is children's rights approach, is to empower marginalized communities. And in that, community development can advocate for child's rights approach in programming, using the principles of CRA to plan, implement, and monitor programs with the overall goal of improving the position of children so that all boys and girls can fully enjoy their rights and can live in societies that acknowledge and respect the rights of children. The role of community development is to encourage local ownership of community development ownership. Community development initiatives or projects. So the ownership will only come if children also understand that they are also part of every community development initiative. For example, we normally build bridges, we normally build schools, we normally build health centers without consulting with children whether those initiatives will be or will respond to their needs. So it is important in whatever that we do, we ensure that we consult children so that their views can inform adults' decisions. We also need to collaborate with children. And we also need to encourage to have or establish child-led initiatives or projects where children are totally leading the process with the guidance of adults or communities or governments. So it is our role to lead a greater accountability from all actors at all levels, be it the parliamentarians, be it the local councillors, be it chiefs, everybody should account when it comes to children's rights. We also need to provide tools for dialogue and engagement with duty bearers, not leaving out the rights holders. We also need to create a platform or safe spaces where children can freely express their views. So ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, owners of our resources are the people. Owners of the resources are our children. poor boys and girls, victimized and ethnic minorities must get equal opportunities. An environment where children get education. We need to create that. We need to create an environment where our children get health services, social security and freedom to participate in all matters affecting them. Participation of children, ladies and gentlemen, must be broad and meaningful. Active participation of boys and girls is a must in the decision-making processes of every community development endeavors. Access to resources also and opportunities and control over must be for all children regardless of their status. Establish basic needs as basic rights. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. So I want us to take a quote with us by, I know that all community development workers or all community development practitioners are well aware of this quote by James Yuan, a pioneering community development worker who said, "Go to the people, live among the people, learn from the people, plan with the people, work with the people. Start with what the people know, build on what the people have. Teach by showing, learn by doing. Not a showcase, but a pattern. Not odds and ends, but a system. Not piecemeal, but an integrated approach. Not to conform, but to transform. Not to relieve, but release." So we are saying it's not about, it's not about, I know when we talk of people, we're talking about adults. When we talk about people, as human rights declaration indicates, people include children. So it is with all through community development that we will be able to implement or advocate for children to be heard, for children to be part of every decisions that are made for them. So there's a saying again that says, "Nothing for us without us." Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. And I thank you for your time.
Cynthia, for the nice presentation about the place of a child, the role of a child, and even now, how do we position this child in our different community development activities. Maybe we can open it up for anybody who has a quick clarification, contribution, and even force a way forward, because community development is going to be there. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we are still going to talk about community development. Same as the children, they're still going to be in our communities. So how do we move on? Think about the different, for instance, awareness activities, different empowerment forums that are coming in. How do we move forward in our different societies? So you can open it up, anybody who has a question, any clarification, and any way forward. You are free, you can mute your mic or you can type on the chat box, whichever works for you.
I think we also have to take into account in the future the effect of COVID on our children in their education and their schooling. We thought it was going to be over sooner than, and it's still not over. And there's vaccinations and mandatory this and mandatory that, and our kids will be the ones that will have to live with this and develop within the community. it's just something I believe we're going to have to consider.
Yeah.
Well done, a fantastic presentation. That was really, really good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Actually, this was my first presentation virtually, so I'm not sure if I really delivered of what that is being expected of me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the great presentation. You've really outlined the key paradigms and the holistic approach. I appreciate so much, and also would like to comment that in the current globalized and technological changing situation, we need to factor in measures that will enlighten our children and also protect them from the fast changing world, especially social media and the way the mind of a child is a bit developing slowly. There should be a guided kind of taking of some of these aspects. That's one I would like to just contribute. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
My name is Elizabeth Imbuhila from Kenya. Call me Professor. Thank you.
Thank you. So you have a question on the chat box, which basically is open to all of us, whereby there's a concern on what are your thoughts about the disconnect between so many great conventions, laws, etc., and the reality of so many forms of oppression facing children everywhere. Maybe that one is open for us, so that different policies and everything are coming up. Each country, each community is trying to come up with a policy. But how do we try now to synchronize all these different conventions? Maybe it's open for us. We can chat about it in the next 2 minutes. And then maybe we can see what's the place of community development in all that. Maybe Cynthia, if you have a feedback on that, you can go ahead.
No, not now.
Or maybe for those ones of us who work with children, think about the different children conventions or rules and regulations and policies that each society is coming up with. Now, how do we sync all these different conventions and different things that we expect from our own societies? And then moving forward, how do we place now in the aspect of community development and take care of the children in our communities? Maybe you can have a quick reaction for the same.
Stella, I'll say.
Yeah, go ahead.
The convention, the CRC, has been adopted by many countries, and it's general for children, and that's specific to children. And every country, for example, like Kenya, we have the bill for the children that now we try and contextualize to our different countries and to our different situations. Although most of the issues are the same across the world, the issues facing children, but I think we contextualize according to the different needs of the country. And the other one, like on the persons with disability, of course it touches on children, but it's across for all persons with disabilities. So I just seeing them separately, they're addressing different issues and not very specific to children. And yeah, I think it's important to have them as they are. Then we just contextualize the different issues that are affecting us individually as a country.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ernie. Okay, yes, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for the chance to add on what Madam Meredith has just said. In Kenya, we also have the Act. And it's true that when it comes to the legislative or institutional frameworks, such as the convention, the specific context should be factored in, just as the previous presenter has said. It's very important to have a general guide, But just giving an example of Kenya, we can have various communities, for instance, but the way they handle children could vary slightly, of course, with exceptions of the social background, such as status in society. I want to take an example of children with disabilities. There are still extreme cases where children with disabilities are not accorded their rights, such as education. And we need to look into these intricacies and ensure that children of all kind of walks of life are accorded their rights and also are guided in their decisions, not just abandoning their rights, such as to education, to other aspects. Please, children with disability, majority are still going through hell. And this is a specific area maybe somebody would like to pick up. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth. Any other quick reaction?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for this presentation. So my name's Tiffany. I live in the United States, and I made sure to stay up late tonight because I really wanted to catch this specific presentation. And it's something that I really wish that many other practitioners here could listen to and be exposed to different perspectives, considering that here we have not ratified the CRC. So it isn't something that you hear a lot about for children. We don't talk about children's rights within that frame very much at all. And so I'm so grateful just to be in this space and to learn with each of you and be exposed to other ways and seeing how do you bring in these different perspectives here. So thank you.
Thank you. Even thanks for the sacrifice to stay up late to wait for the presentation. I'm glad it made some maybe new contribution to your knowledge that you have about the children. So basically, if there's no another quick, or Cynthia, you have a conclusion before we can conclude?
You're sorry, you're still on mute.
Okay, sorry, muted. Sorry, I just wanted to allude to the previous speaker that yeah, as much as the US only signed the convention and not ratified it, but we are well aware that they are very aware of the children's rights, and they are practically implementing. But as the rest of the world or Africa, we also need to have child's rights situation analysis in our different corners, and to be aware of direct actions on violation of rights. And we also need to strengthen the abilities of duty bearers to fulfill their obligations, because that is also a great challenge when it comes to the implementation of children's rights. And we also need to strengthen the abilities of the rights holders. I think it's very important that this has to start where children are most found. Where children are most found, that is in schools. We also need to have children's rights education in our schools so that children can understand what are children's rights, because most of them, they don't know, especially where I am. It's quite a challenge. So we need to do that. We need to empower children to understand, or to recognize that they are rights holders too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thanks everyone for finding time to be able to join today's webinar, which has helped us to understand even the place of a child in all this aspect of development in our communities. So maybe as we go back to our activities, starting from now, maybe now we need to think more about the children and see how do we get to involve these children in the different activities that we do, so that even in the simplest activity that you are doing in your community, can you be able to place a child in those activities and be able to take care of the children's rights within those simple activities that we do, so that even as we look to the bigger maybe spaces or the duty bearers, maybe the government, we as individuals, what are we doing? So can we even start from our own individual initiatives, and then we can upscale it and now push even the government more to be able to respect the children, the rights of the children, and to be able to make sure that all these children are being included in all the activities, so that even as they do the planning, as they do the budgeting and everything, so that now they can be able to have that focus of a child in all those development activities. So maybe that's where we end it for today, but we can still keep on discussing about the same in our different forums to be able to understand more about the children. In our December webinar, basically is going to be an open forum. We are not going to have a specific topic, it's just going to be open, where we take stock of 2021 and basically discuss the way forward in 2022, whether you are still going to do the webinars or you're going to break it down to small countries and discuss our own local issues. Yeah, so that one we decide in the next webinar, which is will be on the second Wednesday, which is on an 8th. It's going to be an open forum for all of us to share and contribute what we feel we should be doing as maybe the African community development practitioners. Yeah, so thanks for joining. Have a good day, have a good afternoon, have a good evening. For Tiffany who is going to sleep, have a good night. We meet in the next webinar in December.